All right, Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with one T McB as we get ready for the Mlb Dfs strategy show. Hat tip to Aton and Adam, Ship My Money Share, who just completed spending an hour on a one-game NBA slate. We have you guys covered all over the place here for the old YouTubes. We have, in return, we're asking you to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell because it will tell you when we do our 1 o'clock NASCAR strategy show, when we do our 5 o'clock MMA live before lock, and then we have 2 more hours of NBA leading you up to the 8:30 tip off. And from 3:30 to 4, we're going to do the MLB live before lock because there are 11 games at 4 o'clock. And depending on your site of choice, there are only 3, perhaps 4 if you're playing on DK for that 7:15 slate. So it's kind of an imbalanced one here, Terry. I was surprised to see that. And everybody waved off with the exception of DraftKings game 2 of the doubleheader for the San Francisco Giants and Washington Nationals.
Yeah, which is a little annoying for our purposes because I can't get that game to populate in my sheet without the hitters from FanDuel, but I've at least got the pitchers in here, so I can at least talk about those two. And I think we don't know the Giants pitcher for that one, actually. So I've got Joe Ross in here. We'll talk about him when we get there. But interesting way that they broke down the slates today with FanDuel, including the 7 o'clock games in their afternoon slate. So the FanDuel's taking it like all the way through, which is kind of interesting. But
I had not realized that. I do want to point this out. Well, here's the now this all makes sense. They only have about 50K posted for their entire 7 o'clock slate. So I think they're trying to do everything and then turn people towards.
They're doing like an evening, like a small evening only baseball. But everything is in the main slate, all 14 games.
Which is crazy because for years we begged for them to do this on the 3 or 4 Saturdays that this would happen, and they would have the 50,000 on this slate and then gigantic. So they're just like, great, we're gonna chop this a million ways. That's no way to play baseball, but here we are. All right. What was the other fun thing that I meant? Oh, so the Nationals, of course, because they like to screw around with the weather, got a little comeuppance from fate from Lady Luck. You probably missed it last night, but 12 pitches in, Max Scherzer strained his groin. He is out.
I saw that. Yeah, that's a bummer, especially for our pal in our season-long league, Michael Brown, who traded away a very good pitcher this week, and then lost Max Scherzer. Ouch. Bad, tough one. All right, well, let's jump on in here. Somehow I don't have the chat. I thought I popped it out there for the YouTube guys. I'll figure that out. Too many windows open at the moment. The one last thing I do want to remind everybody of is we do have soccer projections for Euro 2020. They kept that name. That's the European Cup that's going on right now. It's Euro 2020 because that's what all the branding was. So it's not confusing. We're not doing it wrong. That's what they're calling it. And there has been a fair amount of overlay, and there is also a slate going off at 12, a 2-gamer, that there looks to be overlay on as well. So if you're into that sort of thing, if you are a premium subscriber at Awesemo, you do have access to those projections, or you can get that as a one-off package for all of the premium Euro 2020 and other soccer content that for the next month. So that is the other way you can jump in there. Let's get down to a brass tacks here. We're sponsored by PrizePicks. We'll talk about them in just a moment. But the free content for today is the MLB Spotlight Pitchers and Top Stacks article that's written by me. That's posted out there already. Terry will have his article up, I'm sure, after this show. And then, of course, we have the NBA and MLB player rankings, as well as the MMA fighter rankings. It's UFC 263 tonight. And then the YouTube shows, as I mentioned, we've got another 5 hours of shows, or is it 6 after us? So come on, become a subscriber here on the YouTube channel. It's definitely going to be helpful. And then finally, let's talk some baseball here, Terry. Game 1, New York at Philadelphia. We have a 9 implied run total here. You've got Jameson Taillon going against Vincent Velasquez. You have both pitchers like to challenge hitters. They like to work in the zone. This has one of our higher implied totals of the day. It's not particularly warm in Philadelphia today. A little bit of humidity. It's going to be in the 70s for this one. Take her away. Citizens Bank Ballpark with some home run hitters. Yeah, getting some big home run marks. Not through the roof, kind of like, oh my God, we absolutely have to play these guys kind of power marks, but through the lineups on both teams, getting some pretty good numbers in the home run model. So I expect some power and both of these teams to maybe not completely explode, but if this game went off, I wouldn't be surprised. Both pitchers, like you said, Velasquez sitting in the 12th percentile hard hit rate, the 12th percentile of barrel rate, the 8th percentile of average exit velo. Taillon, 33rd percentile hard hit rate, 26th percentile barrel rate, 27th percentile average exit velo. Both of these guys can give up a lot of hard contact. Taillon, 25.8% strikeouts this year so far. Velasquez, 27.5%. So there are strikeouts for both of these guys. Both teams, the Phillies strike out less than the Yankees by a little bit, but both teams have strikeouts through the lineup. So you can get some quality out of these pitchers, but I would not necessarily trust it. These are not guys I'm really looking to. Neither one is projecting all that well for me. They're both below the middle of the board. Velasquez slightly higher than Taillon for me, but this is not really a spot where I'm looking to either one of the pitchers. I think this one's all about the bats. I can grab a stack from either one of these teams, and you can put these teams together in pretty interesting ways. I think the Phillies play pretty well in the projected lineup 1 through 7. If you want to leave Ronnie Torreyes out, I'm fine with that. But I would play Alec Bohm from the 7 spot. I would play Andrew McCutchen from the 6, all the way up through the top of the lineup. Yankees, similar story. You know, if you want to get down to Brett Gardner and leave him out, he's a guy who can hit one out every now and then, but he's just not. I think he's finally hit that year where he's actually done and over the hill. It's been a long time coming, but Brett's been struggling. But the Yanks have all that power through the middle, so you can get to some decent bats here. I like the way that both of these teams come together. I would probably be more inclined to roster Phillies if I had to choose one of these two stacks, just in terms of the strikeouts and their ability to sequentially hit a little bit better than the Yankees do.
All right. And just for those of you wondering, even though we do not have the lineup yet, manager Aaron Boone said it is unlikely that Giancarlo Stanton will play in the outfield. He will be available to pinch hit for this series. Next game here, we've got Kansas City Royals going into Oakland. This will be a 1 o'clock local start there. It is going to be a very nice 69 degrees. We've got a little bit of a breeze blowing out to right field in the 8 to 12 mile an hour range. We have Jason Kowar making his second start. You have James Kapralian on the other side, hat tip to a fellow Armenian there. What are you thinking here of Jackson Kowar? He kind of got roughed up in his first start. He is a top, depending on which list you pull, he's a top 5 prospect in the Kansas City organization. And he's someone that is going to get a chance here to stick in the rotation / bullpen as they are working some things out. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets sent back down after this start, if nothing good comes of it. Do you want to take any chances on him for a little salary relief?
You know, he's actually projecting okay for me, not at the top of the board, but he's one of the cheap guys who's higher up for me than I would have expected him to. I don't love it. I don't trust the kid yet. And just looking at some of the minor league numbers, he just seems like a kid who's up early, needs a little bit more seasoning. I mean, the kid's pitched through the minors, let's call it, I'm trying to do the math in my head, let's call it about 200 innings through his entire minor league career since 2018. So that was at low A, high A, 75 innings at double A in 2019, and then he's pitched 31 2/3 innings at triple A. So he just isn't there yet. I'm surprised they brought him. I know they need pitching, but I'm kind of surprised they exposed him this early. And even through those minor league seasons, I mean, in that 2019 double A season, 25.2% strikeouts. In high A, 21.2%. He's at 33.9% in the small triple A sample, which is a nice sign. He's got an electric, awesome fastball and a really plus changeup that work well together. But when a kid's not ready yet, that's a combination of pitches that major league hitters can kind of get on top of if he doesn't know how to work them right yet. So I'd be a little bit concerned, particularly against an A's team that hits for power and hits righties for power with guys like Matty Olson, Mitch Moreland in there, Seth Brown in there, a lot of good, powerful lefty bats. And the righties in here can hit righties fairly well. So I'd be concerned about Kowar. Based on the projection, if I ran it through my process, he'd probably come up, since he's 5,500 on both sites. He'd probably come up more so as an SP2 on DK. I don't think I would get to him as an SP1 on FanDuel. But as an SP2, I think he's at least in play for some shares. I just don't fully trust it. I don't think I'd bank my whole night on it.
All right. Agreed on that one. Looking for some of the hitters, Matt Olson, Mitch Moreland. That'll be your decision point. You can only play one. They're both first base eligible. You've got Seth Brown, who tends to creep up a little bit in the order when it is a righty on the mound. And then, of course, why is Matt Chapman batting so far down the lineup? That's something that's confusing to me. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have said he was, kind of their air quote best hitter along with Matt Olson. He seems to have stagnated a touch, and it's Mark Conha that is actually ahead of him a little bit. So
yeah, Chapman 211, 316, 338 this season. Concerningly, a 127 ISO from Matt Chapman. That is bad. I mean, that is not Matt Chapman. 5 home runs, creating runs 9% worse than average. So kind of makes sense that he's down there at this point, really struggling. But I mean, this is a premium hitter, a guy who hit 30 some odd home runs a couple years ago. So I trust Matt Chapman. I think we'll see him return to form as the season continues, but it's definitely a concerning start there. But I wouldn't leave him out of stacks because of that. I would go as far down as Chapman. I don't really need Tony Kemp, and I definitely don't need Elvis Andrus, who left all his talent in Texas a couple years ago. So he's pretty much shot. And then any shares of Kaprelian for you at 8,500 on DK? Seems a little bit of an aggressive price on Kaprelian on DK. If I was going to roster him, I like him better for 67 on FanDuel, but it's not for me.
Yeah, he's more of a season-long streaming option this week in head-to-head. I don't think we can attack him, but going against Kansas City, even without Adalberto Mondesi, it's still a pretty good lineup up and down the order there on that one. I thought we might see Brian Goodwin. Wait, no, Goodwin is with the White Sox. Sorry, no longer with Kansas City. We'll talk about that when we get there. Nick Madrigal got put on the 60-day DL, so they purchased Goodwin from AAA. All right, on to the next one. I see our friend of the show, Steve Leibowitz, is there in chat. I'm going to say it for you, Steve. I know he doesn't pitch till Monday, but happy Nathan Eovaldi Day. Eovaldi. I've been working on that pronunciation. There is one lineup that has been released so far today, Terry. Of course, it is the Cincinnati Reds, who are always first and foremost when it comes to lineups. I bet if you asked them, they'd put out tomorrow's lineup too. We have Herman Marquez going into the Great American Ballpark, taking on Wade Miley and the Reds. The Reds put a whooping on the opposition last night. That was Kyle Freeman. We saw home runs from up and down the lineup. We should get Tyler. Oh, we do have Tyler Naquin in today batting cleanup. He's 3,600 on DK. He didn't start last night. I don't remember if he came in later in the game. I went to bed early. Hey, no surprise there. But what do you like or dislike from this one? Wade Miley did have the no-hitter. He also spent one turn on the injured list. That was for a sprained foot. He has been back for 2 starts since then, fully good to go. But he's someone I don't like picking on, no-hitter notwithstanding. What are you liking or disliking from this game? Because that's a pretty lofty run total there for the Reds against Marquez.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be about the Reds bats once again. I wrote them up yesterday. Really loved the spot yesterday against Freeland, despite the lefty for Jesse Winker, who was the only guy that was any kind of concern and was going off at low ownership. Today, looks like they're going off again at pretty low ownership. They're going up against a better pitcher. Marquez, 24.7% strikeout rate this year, 3.70 xFIP. The whip is up for Marquez, 1.35 whip, and he's walking a lot of hitters, 11.2% walks, but inducing 12.8% swinging strikes, 29% CSW. So I like Marquez, but I don't think I'm going to roster him here. It might make me a little bit more tepid about the Reds bats, but this offense has just been rolling throughout the entire season. So I'll probably have some Reds bats again. They profile pretty well for me in terms of power. They profile pretty well for me in terms of just fantasy points and projection on these guys. A little bit better actually on that end than in the home run model. So based on the sequential hitting nature of it, I think I'll probably get to some Reds here. Just taking a look against right-handed pitching, the Reds are near the top of the league in all 4 categories that are on my board. 69 home runs to lead the league against righties, creating runs 9% better than average. Sixth in baseball with a 22.4% strikeout rate. Team ISO of 183. Just a really, really strong offense. They've been just quality all year long. So like the Reds, I'll get to some of those bats. Definitely not going to get to Wade Miley on this one. I don't think. If you wanted him for 7,600 as an SP2 on DK, that's fine. You can roll the dice there. But even against a weak Rockies lineup, it's just not for me. 21.1% strikeout rate is a little below average. 3.32 xFIP is nice. but a 1.13 whip, 9.5% swinging strike rate. There's just not a lot there. He's not a major upside pitcher. 8,100 on FanDuel, I think he's too expensive. I don't know that I'd throw Rockies bats back against him. They got Trevor Story back in the last week or so. So if you wanted to, I would take a look at that middle around Charlie Blackmon, Trevor Story, Ryan McMahon, maybe throw in CJ Cron or Garrett Hampson from one side of that or the other. That said, you're getting pretty heavy ownership on Story, who is the primary piece of that I would want to get to. I don't know that I'd one-off Story given the heavy ownership. It's really probably just mostly about the Reds bats in this one for me, I think.
I'm blanking. What was Story on the injured list? I know he went on in early April, so he's been out for about 2 months.
I forget.
Was it a wrist or a hand or a thumb or something? I can't remember. We'll have to look that up. But I was, I'd forgotten that he was actually on their team.
Elbow. Elbow.
Okay. We'd seen such watered down lineups for them with, with no Arenado and David Dahl obviously not there, and half their games not in Coors Field, etc. But interesting one. All right. So, hey, if you guys are not able to watch your favorite Awesemo shows on YouTube, no problem. Almost all of our Awesemo YouTube shows are available through the Awesemo Podcast Network. And even better, when you watch them and then submit a 5-star review with your Twitter handle or Awesemo username included, you'll be in a drawing to win a free month of Awesemo Platinum. No longer a week, a free month. We award one lucky winner every Friday, and your reviews will be eligible to win for up to a year. This is the best chance out there to win a free month of Awesemo Plus, as you'll be competing against less people in this contest than in any other giveaway we run. So make sure you put in a 5-star review and make it count. We've got a podcast for every sport, as well as the consolidated channel, and we are on every major platform. So head on over to awesemo.com/podcast and check out the latest. Next game, Terry, we have, a pitcher's duel. Who knew? If you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, I would have said, probably not. Mets missing about half of their offense. They're still okay. But guess what? We are not going against the Baltimore Orioles in a warm Camden Yards at this point. So it's a tougher matchup here against Joe Musgrove. Did you know, Terry, that Joe Musgrove is having a career season with a 2.33 ERA, a .84 whip, and 12.2 strikeouts per 9, which is 6th best in Major League Baseball. Talk to me here about Musgrove. He's going to be the comparator against Corbin Burns. How are you feeling about Musgrove on the road, albeit against a lesser Mets lineup that is, of course, missing Conforto, Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, and JD Davis?
Yeah, Musgrove, like you said, Musgrove's been pitching great. One of the guys I had my eye on coming into the season, and he's outperformed everything that I expected for him. So love the spot. This is the guy that our pal Michael Brown traded away in that deal. So just love Joe Musgrove. Got to get that in. Tweak Mikey. 65 and 2/3 innings, 34.2% strikeout rate this year, 2.55 xFIP, 0.84 whip, inducing 14.6% swinging strikes, 33% CSW. It's just a phenomenal season he's strung together so far. Sitting in the 55th percentile of hard hit rate, the 50th percentile of barrel rate, 67th percentile of average exit velo. So he's doing okay in terms of avoiding. He's around average in terms of avoiding hard contact. He's at the league average of barrel rate, but his strikeout rate is 92nd percentile. His whiff rate is 80th percentile. His walk rate is 91st percentile. Just absolutely excellent. And he's going up against a Mets team that they're okay not striking out against righties. They're 8th best in baseball with a 22.9% strikeout rate. They are dead even at league average creating runs against righties. They've only hit 43 home runs in the split. They've got a team ISO of 149 overall. So it's not like they're threatening him coming back the other way. So I think this is a strong spot for Musgrove. You might lose a few strikeouts compared to what we're normally seeing, but I think he's just pitching so well. He's got the talent level that he's probably, if I was betting on it, I would say his talent is going to overcome the Mets' ability to not strike out against righties. So I expect a good start from Musgrove here. One of my higher projected pitchers, number 3 on the board for me on the entire day on that FanDuel slate, because we've got the entire 14 games. So really going to fire up a lot of Musgrove here. 13% ownership on that FanDuel slate as well. Not too bad. I like that a lot. So I'll definitely be getting to him at 32% ownership on DK. I think he's definitely in play for that afternoon slate. So this is a spot to hammer on both sites for me. As far as Stroman going back the other way, not a guy I roster a lot for DFS purposes. And then this Padres team, it's a roster that can hit the ball hard enough. And he's sitting in the 26th percentile of hard hit rate, the 41st percentile of average exit velo, but the 70th percentile of barrel rate. So if he slips and hits a barrel, these balls are going to go. And that's really where Stroman, that's the balancing act with Stroman. He's in the 28th percentile of strikeout rate. It's just not a strikeout pitcher. 20.5% strikeouts overall on the season. Pitching well in terms of xFIP and WHIP, 3.49 xFIP, 1.08 WHIP, inducing 11.6% swinging strikes, but just not finishing guys off. So I don't know that I love the spot. It's a team that can make contact, and I would not really be rostering much Stroman here. 9,000 I think is too much to pay for him on DK. 92 I think is too much to pay for him on FanDuel.
My stupid FanGraphs deal report isn't working anymore here. I think, there we go. James McCann in his last 64 games has allowed 26 stolen bases. I want to point that out because the Padres lead the league by like 24 stolen bases ahead of, I think it's Kansas City that's second. I haven't looked at this in a week, but it was a big number there. You're looking at Fernando Tatis Jr. potentially looking at a 40-30 season. I think the 50-50 season that's a bit much, but 40-30 in this day and age is pretty damn impressive from that one. We do know that, that while it's, Syndergaard and DeGrom that we would rather steal against, it's a systematic issue throughout the Mets organization and has been for multiple years, regardless of who is behind the plate or who is on the mound. They're not that great at preventing stolen bases. Just want to point that out here. Not the best matchup, as you mentioned, against Stroman. He does have that heavier ground ball rate, flashes of strikeouts, but all it does is keep his DFS price high, and it's not worthwhile going against him. He'll basically, I would have zero interest in him on DraftKings at 9,000. I'd rather just spend the other 300 on Musgrove and just ride with the crowd on that one. I just don't see a need to play with fire going against the Friars today. But I did want to point that out because they do have a fair amount of stolen bases in their squad.
Yeah, that projected lineup for the Pods, 6 stolen bases average throughout that lineup. 2 guys over 10 with Tommy Pham and Tatis. So definitely, yeah, that's a really good call. Potentially some bonus points there for Padres stacks.
All right, let's go on to our next game here. Toronto Blue Jays in Boston. It's going to be in the upper 60s there in Fenway Park. We are looking at about a 70% humidity, neutral wind. We have Steven Matz, the lefty, going against the Bo Sox. Boston on the other side has Nick Pivetta. Not the easiest of matchups going against Toronto. They did get Kevon Biggio back off of the injured list, so they are back and wait for it, Terry. What's the over-under on Loaded for Bear today? That's 1. We'll try to keep it at 1. In this one, you've got Nick Pivetta, who's stabilized his numbers, and they're getting better. There are some strikeouts here in the Toronto lineup. 9,100, though. We got another 1,400 to go up to Burns or 200 to go to Musgrove. He is someone I would consider as a potential Pivetta. I had to go there.
You did there.
I had to go
I see
there.
what you did there.
Talk to us about the Blue Jays and the Bo Sox.
I'm getting excellent power marks up and down the Red Sox lineup going up against Steven Matz here, the lefty. Red Sox hit for power pretty well from both sides, but targetable against lefties. Matz 39th percentile hard hit rate, 67th percentile though in average exit velo, and 75th percentile in barrel rate. So he's avoiding the sweet spot, but still, I think there's just definitely indicators for some power here for the Red Sox. I'm not looking to get to Steven Matz. The 1.38 whip is concerning, 9.9% swinging strikes, 24.1% strikeout rate. The upside's not really there most nights, and I think this is just a night where it's or an afternoon where it's just going to fall toward the Red Sox lineup just based on the power indicators that I'm getting back here. So I'm looking to stack Red Sox. I'll play Alex Verdugo lefty. JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, no problem on the right side of the plate. Hunter Renfroe destroys left-handed pitching. Rafael Devers in there, lefty, no sweat. So there's a really nice stack in the middle of that Red Sox lineup. And then you can include hitters like Bobby Dahlbeck. You can include hitters like Enrique Hernandez, Christian Vasquez. I would play this lineup from top to bottom against Steven Matz here. So definitely can get to that. I would not pay up to roster Steven Matz, or excuse me, he's not expensive. So I would not consider rostering Steven Matz even for the discount, not projecting well for me. So that's a bottom of the barrel kind of a play for me here in this spot. And I'm getting Pivetta around the same level, only 8,400 on FanDuel. It would be nice if he was projecting a little bit better for me, but I just think the matchup is there. It's a Toronto team that's this isn't loading. Hold on one second. There we go. Toronto team that is fifth best in baseball, 22.4% strikeout rate against righties, a 182 ISO, creating runs 10% better than average, 66 home runs among the league leaders against righties. So there's a lot of power coming back the other way, a lot of quality hitters coming back the other way. So this is a lineup I like to get to when they're in the right spot. They're projecting okay for me. Everybody's under 10, which is like the magic number in the home run model, but there's a bunch of guys that are pressing right under 10 in my home run model. And then the guys through the top 6 in the lineup are just projecting well DFS wise. So I think this is a game where I'm going to get the stacks on both sides and play it that way. I don't think I'm going to have much of either pitcher, if any.
The question is going to be coming in from the YouTube chat. It is from Seth. He wants to know, in your home run model, where is Hunter Renfroe? What mark does he have? Asking for a friend.
Hunter Renfroe is number 4 overall on the entire slate. That's the 14-game slate on FanDuel with a 17.48. So 10 is the magic number that pushes you to above average. 20 is like you've got a great chance, so he's right there. Number 1 is JD Martinez. Number 2 is Rafael Devers. So this model loves the Red Sox today.
All right. And then Xander Bogaerts last night was a late scratch, sore knee, fully expected to be in the lineup today. As far as we know, it was just more or less a precautionary holdout yesterday. All right, our next one here, we're going into Milwaukee. Looks like the roof will be open. It's going to be in the upper 70s for this game. You've got Corbin Burns, who is having a phenomenal season, challenging teammate Brandon Woodruff for most amazing pitcher on the Brew Crew side. You have Chad Kuhl going for Pittsburgh. He did allow a home run in his last start, but he has done a reasonably good job, much to my chagrin, of keeping people in check. He's going to see a lot of lefties today, generally the bane of his existence here. What are you thinking about? Is Chad Kuhl at all worthwhile as an SP2 on DK at 6,400?
6,400. I mean, that's the price puts him in play, I guess, because that's going to let you do a lot with those bats. Just a
better way of saying it: Jackson Kowar or for 1,000 less, or Chad Kuhl.
I think I would probably go Coward just based on the idea that maybe he finds the strikeouts. Chad Kuhl, we know that the strikeouts aren't there. 17.8% strikeout rate this season, just not a strikeout guy. 5.94 xFIP, 1.48 whip, walking 14.4% of hitters. That's not the kind of guy you want to go out of your way for. That said, this Brewers lineup does have a ton of strikeouts in it, so maybe he picks up a couple extra, but even a couple extra for Chad Kuhl, you're still talking about maybe he climbs up to being a league average strikeout. It's just not a great spot. The price is right, though. I mean, if that's something where you need a pitcher to make it work for you, you're going out on a very specific limb. But I think there's an idea that maybe he could pick up a few extra strikeouts for that money and not get too damaged. But I would be more inclined to roster Brewers bats, I think, on the other side of this one rather than getting to Chad Kuhl. And then Burns on the other side's my top projected pitcher on the entire slate, just pitching so well this season. 42.2% strikeouts in 59 and a third innings, walking only 3.1% of hitters, 1.71 xFIP, 0.71 whip. Swinging strike rate is 18.5%. Combined call plus swinging strike rate, 36.3%. He's throwing strike 36.3% of the time. That's ungodly. So he's pitching absolutely lights out. The Pirates' one discernible skill, I talk about it a lot, is that they are reasonably good at not striking out. They're second in the league with a 21.6% strikeout rate against righties. They are terrible at everything else. A 127 team, ISO, creating runs 14% worse than average in the split. Only 31 home runs in the split, trails the rest of the league by, it looks like, at least 10 home runs. I've got the home run rate on a different page, so we won't get into that. But there's just no real threat coming back against him. And a pitcher like Burns, when he's on and pitching this well, I think he's going to find the extra strikeouts in this lineup. So I'm not concerned about their ability to avoid the strikeouts. I would hammer Burns here. 12K on FanDuel makes it a little challenging as far as what you can roster alongside of him. I love the 10.5 price on DK, though. I think that's a little bit low. So I can get to plenty of Corbin Burns here. Would not stack the Pirates going against him, even in a contrarian kind of an approach. Just not enough quality there. I don't think there's any real upside there. Even if they manage to not strike out against him, I don't think they're going to not strike out and score 15 runs against him. So not going there, but I would stack some Brewers bats going up against Chad Kuhl here.
All right, we have a question here in chat that I'm going to let you look at the answer for while I talk about our next game. So Matt Noah would like to know if there is a top stacks team that you like that is above a 1.0 leverage. While you are looking that up, I want to mention one. He did not say. Why not both? Why not both?
Well, the DK slate on the top.
Oh, yeah, they're different. They're different. Yeah, do the DK one.
Yeah, so let me pull the early slate here.
All right. While you're looking for that, I do want to say it's going to be in the low to mid 80s here in Detroit in Comerica Park. There's going to be some rain in the area, should not impact the game. 60 to 65% humidity, and those warmer temperatures are going to create some dense air. That dense air will aid hitters. Jose Urena does a pretty good job of limiting home runs, just a 1.32 per 9 against lefties over the last 2+ seasons, 0.88 against righties. However, there's a trade-off. Urena's lack of strikeouts, just a 10.2% strikeout rate in his last 343 matchups against lefties. For perspective, that is barely a half a strikeout per inning. That is 5.6 per 9. This is the perfect matchup for Jake Lamb, who's barely hanging on to a roster spot these days. Terry, I also like Adam Eaton. There is no stolen base upside with Adam Eaton, who only has 5 through the last 92 games, just 1 this year, and not since the first week of the season. I do like Yasmani Grandal, despite the 160 average. He does have power. 10 home runs, 2 doubles so far. What do you like about this one? And does this dovetail in with the top stacks answer?
I don't know if you looked at that before you launched the intro for this game, but that is the White Sox are the answer to that question on the DK slate. They've got they're not only at a 1.6 leverage score, they're also our top ranked stack. So you're getting the best stack overall at one of the better leverage marks on that DK slate, which is pretty interesting. That makes the White Sox very, very appealing in this spot. I would fire away with White Sox bats against Urena here. You mentioned most of the key reasons to do it. Only a 14% strikeout rate, a 1.45 whip, just putting way too many guys on, inducing only 7.2% swinging strikes. I'm pretty sure that I could induce 5% swinging strikes. So that is just not a major league quality pitcher at this point in his career. Fire away with White Sox bats. I think Adam Eaton might have swiped the bag last night because I've got him at 2 total on the season, but only one.
Did he? Okay.
Only 199, 299, 360 for the year, creating runs 11% worse than average. Not really an Adam Eaton kind of a season, but he's a sneaky bat. He's a guy with a little bit of pop, a little bit of speed. If he's hitting in the middle of the lineup where they've got him projected, I like that as part of a stack. I don't know that it's a one-off spot for me, but if you're including with like Joan Moncada, Jose Abreu, Yasmani Grandal in the middle there, maybe build Timmy Anderson in from the top of the lineup. There's a lot of different good ways to put that White Sox lineup together, even without the Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert, who have been out all season. It's just a very good lineup. If I'm leaving off anybody, it's probably Brian Goodwin and Lurie Garcia from the bottom, but both of those guys can be sneaky, and we've seen both of those guys have oddball games that I don't know if they're slate breaking, but they become a requirement in White Sox stacks on the odd days that they go off. So I think both of those guys could be in play, but if I'm leaving anybody out, it's probably them.
All right. Anything pitching against Detroit still worth a mention at least?
Yes, absolutely. Glad you brought it up. Dylan Cease, one of my guys. I've been talking about him all season since before he found his stuff and really was able to harness it. And that's kind of what we were waiting for, was him to really find his stuff and be able to pitch at the major league level effectively and reliably. And he's there. It'll probably get sharper as he goes, but right now, 29.4% strikeout rate, very good, 15.1% swinging strike rate. So the stuff is really on. What he doesn't do insanely well is throw called strikes. With a 15.1% swinging strike rate, he's still only at a 29.9 CSW. That should go up as he learns to harness his control and command a little bit better. I think I've said the word harness like 6 times since we've been talking, but I like the spot for Cease. I wish he was a little bit less expensive. 9,700 on FanDuel, 9,600 on DK. If we were getting a little bit more of a discount, it would be an absolute smash spot. But with only 3% ownership on the FanDuel slate, 12% ownership on the DK slate, I think he's a little bit sneaky. I think most people are going to be looking up to the pitchers who were maybe bigger names than him. And going up against this Tigers team, it's always a good spot for rostering pitchers. Detroit this year sitting second worst in baseball, 26.8% strikeout rate against righties, 9% worse than average, creating runs in the split, 156 team ISO. Lot to like about the Dylan Cease spot here.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Awesemo Hall of Fame. This is a fun little segment we have where we put up the screenshots of our winners who have put their names in lights. Additionally, we also have a promotion going along that ties into this. It's the Awesemo Avatar promotion. If you go to awesemo.com/avatar, you can download the Awesemo Avatar. If you use that as your avatar on any of the DFS sites, if you finish in the top 3 of any contest with at least 5,000 people, we'll get you 30 free days of Awesemo premium content. You do need to tweet at Awesemo_COM and Awesemo Hall of Fame. And then one little caveat, got to be top 3. Ties don't count if there's more than 3 people. So all you showdown winners, we'd go broke if we were giving it to all of you, but we will still celebrate those screenshots with you. Up here, we have a nice one here, $100,000 from Supavash. Good work by him. He also dropped in $18 as well. 4 lineups, bringing home $100,000. Pretty damn good. Next one here, we've got DeColts and Awesemo, and then DeColts again. Oh my gosh, it's Awesemo himself, and then DeColts. That's Steve Buzzard, CFO of Awesemo.com. These guys know what they're doing. They're also the ones that are doing the models behind the scenes and coming up with the tools. You're getting their good stuff. You can see they're using their good stuff as well. Next one, we have Rando 34, $1,500 victory there. It looks like a nice one with Rogers from Miami and Minor. A couple lefties there going against Oakland. Solid showing there. And then, good God, is this our MMA expert? Why, yes, it's Pete the Heat Rogers, who has tied himself, shall we say, on the CSGO. He dominates CSGO. He has prior to the pandemic. He loves playing DFS sports. He plays most of the sports as well as being an MMA analyst and pugilist. So check that out. You can catch Pete the Heat Rogers with Jason Floyd a little bit later today for the MMA Live Before Lock. All right, Terry, let's get back to business here on our, too many windows open. I got a little excited there with the Awesemo Hall of Fame, but now we are moving on to Seattle at Detroit. Lofty run total in this one. I see I wrote down the incorrect pitchers. Somehow I got off by a game here, but I know it's UC Kikuchi going against McKenzie. McKenzie has struggled somewhat this season. Kikuchi left early in his last start, sore right knee, took a comebacker off it, had to leave the game. He effectively is good to go in this one. I'm not really interested in the pitchers with everything else we've got going on. Do the hitters rise to the occasion for you?
Let's take a look. I was just jumping over to the StatCast board, but I'll jump back to my model here. Looks like the Seattle side is pulling some decent power marks, not projecting through the roof. It's all basically average projection in terms of DFS points, but I am getting some nice marks in the home run model, and it doesn't look like they're going to be overly highly owned. So I think it could be a decent sneaky spot. You get some decent power bats in there with Kyle Seager, with Ty France, Mitch Haniger, of course. So I don't hate it. Maybe like a 3-man stack kind of an approach with those guys. None of them over 10% and all pulling decent home run marks. You can move them around the board. There's a couple multi-position guys in there. So I don't hate that. Going up against McKenzie, who I think will be a good pitcher, very high-end prospect for the Indians, striking out 32.2% of hitters this year in his 41 2/3 innings. But concerningly, he's walking 19.1%, which is absurd. That is just completely untenable. So the kid's not there yet, but he will be one day. I think this is going to be a very good pitcher. 4.93 xFIP, 1.51 whip currently. Very, very targetable. So I can throw Mariners bats back the other way. I don't think I would be getting to too many Indians bats here going up against Kikuchi. Just taking the top off a little bit on the power marks here for me. So just looking at him in StatCast, though, concerningly, 24%, 24th percentile barrel rate, 18th percentile average exit velo, 23rd percentile hard hit rate. So those indicators are telling me that maybe there is a little bit more sneaky power available here for the Indians if they can get bat on ball. It's just the lineup is not the greatest. It's not like this Indians lineup that we've seen from the past few years. I don't think it's a little bit reduced, and they haven't really performed, at least for me, when I've stacked. Maybe other people have had different results. The main primary bat in there, Jose Ramirez, nice season so far, 276, 365, 47 with a 271 ISO. creating runs 43% better than average. But a lot of the other hitters in this lineup below average WRC plus, which is concerning. It means they're not turning the lineup over. It means they're not hitting sequentially. It means they're not creating runs. And that is a major detriment for DFS purposes. Once you get past Eddie Rosario in the 5 spot, you're talking about Owen Miller, Yu Chang, Bradley Zimmer kind of never was guy who was supposed to be a good prospect, had a couple flashes, but never really got there. He's at the bottom of the projected lineup. Austin Hedges, maybe a sneaky catcher, some power in there, but not a reliable bat by any means. So I don't love the Indian stack here, but maybe if you want to grab some one-offs from the Indians in terms of just looking at those contact metrics for Kikuchi, I think I could endorse that rather than stacking them.
So are you saying I shouldn't send you any trade offers that include Bradley Zimmer in our Dynasty League, Terry?
Probably not.
All right. Let's move on to our next one. We've got 3 to go here. We don't have a pitcher yet for Miami, but we've got 2 pitchers to talk about in Arizona. This is going to be a 1 o'clock start. The temperatures are going to be in the triple digits. So this will, in fact, be a roof closed situation here. We have Caleb Smith, who is making his 3rd start since rejoining the rotation. Fair amount of strikeout upside for him. He just seemingly lost it a little bit, went back, worked some things out in the bullpen. I would expect he's got enough in him to at least qualify for the win, meaning he should get 5 innings. I'm not expecting much more. On the other side, you have Alex Cobb. Interesting story here with Mr. Cobb. He has been kicking ass with the strikeouts. Terry, this is like it's almost unprecedented. So I went and started looking at this morning, and I said, okay, what's going on here? Is he a guy that the sticky stuff is helping? No, he had a nice article 2 days ago where he's railing against it, saying, I don't want extra spin rate. That does not help sinker ball pitchers. So that's not his issue. I'm wondering, is it the raised seams a little bit? Does that give him a little bit of a different control, a little bit of maybe some different movement on his pitches? But he is striking out 10.9 per 9 innings, considering he has not been above 6.5 since the 2014 season. That is amazing. Is it a small sample size? I don't know, but I'm going to take into account a little bit of the humidor helping him out with that roof closed, a little bit of luck, and he gets to go against a pitcher instead of a designated hitter here. Smoke and mirrors, small sample size, or reinvention?
Well, it's interesting that
his pitch mix didn't change either, or his velocity. That's about as deep as I can go. I know you're way better at looking at movement, spin rate, and all that fun stuff, arm slots, than I am.
So he can say what he wants, but he added spin to his sinker. He added spin to his curveball since last year, and significantly since a couple years ago. So sure, if that's what he wants to tell us. I am much more a believer this year in the idea that it's the raised seams that are making all this difference rather than the sticky stuff. Pitchers have been using sticky stuff since the beginning of baseball in the 1800s. This is not a new trend. So yeah, there's spider tack and all these different new combinations and new formulas and everything that they're using for it. But I think it's a little bit overblown. I do agree with you though that it's probably not something that's impacting Cobb here. The pitch mix didn't change in terms of what he's throwing, but the amounts that he's throwing them. He's throwing the splitter a little bit more, the sinker, 2-seamer fastball a little bit less. So it's just the way that those pitches work off of one another is probably creating a nice effect for him here. Looks like he's generating a little bit more swing and miss on the splitter, and then a nice amount more swing and miss on the curveball. Curveball whiff percentage went from 23.4% last year to 34.8% this year, and he's putting away 20% of hitters with it. So the curve is really what's making the difference for him, which is interesting. He's sitting 71st percentile hard hit rate, 71st percentile average exit velo, 95th percentile barrel rate, which is tremendous. 97th percentile chase rate, which is probably a lot to do with that curve, and then all these sinking pitches that dip out of the zone. So he's pitching very well. He has yet to earn my full trust. If he's going to have to do a lot. This is a pitcher I used to target. So he's pitching really well. 29% strikeout rate overall, 2.64 xFIP, 12.7% swinging strike rate. Going up against the Diamondbacks lineup that is not overly threatening coming back the other way. Arizona sits this year, they're on this board somewhere. All the teams are. There they are. 18th in baseball with a 24.4% strikeout rate against righties, creating runs 16% worse than average, team ISO of 137. So there's not a lot of threat against him. If he can manage to generate some strikeouts here, it could be another good spot for Alex Cobb. 8,000 on FanDuel. I think if you want to look for a guy who doesn't cost that much, is not going to be owned at all on the FanDuel slate or on the DK slate for that matter, looking over there at 8,700, Alex Cobb might be your sneaky pitcher of the day here. I don't trust it. I don't love it. I don't know how much I'll have. And I hate pushing people into plays like that where I'm not sure I'm going to roster it, but I think it is on the board. I think it's there for him.
All right, so I'm gonna drop in the link here. This is for the free article I do every day. It is called the Spotlight Pitchers and Top Stacks article. I do a little bit something a little bit different in that I write up a stack for each of the slates, which allows me to talk about different teams. I'm not always going to rarely will I write up Coors Field or some of the completely obvious stacks, but it's a way to teach you guys how to look for different things. So when this information comes up on the short slates, you can take advantage of it. Plus, it's always fun to learn a little bit something. So you guys can check that out. I also do the top 3 pitchers of the day. This was a little bit different because of the way they broke out the slate. So I did a couple for the 4 o'clock and a couple for the quote, air quote main slate, which we'll be talking about here shortly, which is only 3 or 4 games. For this one here, I did put in Alex Cobb. I put him in my wild card section. That's usually reserved for the SP2s that we would play on Yahoo and DraftKings. You do not need to go to Alex Cobb in any shape or form on FanDuel. It is just, there is no purpose or utility whatsoever in going to him. However, I am a bit of a believer here, and I'm not particularly terrified of the Arizona offense. Famous last words, we will find out, because of course they have to play the game, but I am going to be playing him here. He will probably be a 20 to 25% pitcher in my lineups. So of course we want to go with Burns. We want to go with Musgrove. There's quite a few other options that we'll look to first today, but he'll probably be about my 4th most popular option. Our next game here, we still don't have a pitcher yet for Miami, but we do have Max Fried. But in the meantime, Terry, as you're looking that up, I want to mention our sponsor, PrizePicks, who is having a lot of fun here with their giving away deposit bonuses. If you use the promo code Awesemo when you make your first deposit, they will match you up to $100. That's a pretty good deal right from the jump there. So how does it work? Well, you say goodbye to Sharks over there. Say, yeah, we don't do lineup optimizers. There's no mass multi-entry. All you're doing is picking 2, 3, 4, or 5 players that are available on their board with questions to go over or under whatever their projected score is. Be that a category, be that fantasy points. You can combine the different sports, NBA, esports, MLB, etc. They'll have NFL, of course. And the more of those questions you put in, of the 2, 3, 4, or 5, you get up to 5, you're looking at the ability to 10x your buy-in. So this is sort of a different wrinkle on the prop wagering site, but they are available on the mobile app, any mobile app site, the App Store, Google Play, etc. And again, the key, they're giving you $100 to go figure out how to play their site. If you use the promo code Awesemo when you make your first deposit, you will get $100 matched by them. Simplify your daily fantasy. Look at PrizePicks today. I'm looking forward to signing up for them tonight, Terry. Ooh, it looks like they have some soccer as well. Interesting.
Nice.
Interesting.
Hey, you're all about that soccer these days.
I am, as long as there's overlay and potential edge, and we have Awesemo premium product behind it. Of course I'm in. Heck, I did not play Call of Duty or Rocket League. That was the only 2 video game sports or esports that I did not play during the pandemic. Played all the rest. Tried to watch League of Legends. To me, it looked like Pigpen from the Peanuts. It looked like just a scrum all the way around. I couldn't tell what was going on with League of Legends. Yeah,
still no idea.
It's giving me a headache. I can't tell who my guys are. They're killing all the little, I don't know, the bots or whatever, the little trolls that spawn and they get points. It's just like, just too confusing for me. I still played it every day, but I just didn't know.
That's what's great about the site, right? I mean, that's what's great about all our tools and content is you don't need to actually know anything about these sports to make it work and to make good lineups. You can actually put together very good lineups for these sports where you don't even know what you're watching when you try and watch it. So yeah, I love doing that and jumping into some oddball stuff.
All right. Max Fried, I will say at 7,400, he is warranting or is worth consideration here going against Miami. We don't have a run total yet because Miami hasn't announced a pitcher. I'm going to guess Miami's going to probably be in, I don't know, the 3.8, 3.9 range. That feels about right. That does not mean Fried is a lights out pitcher. He has had issues with righty power in the past. However, it is still the Marlins lineup, which is not particularly terrifying. They have a couple swing from your heels guys in Jesus Aguilar and Adam Duvall, but otherwise nothing overly daunting. Starling Marte actually is back from injury, but that still doesn't make this to be too daunting of a lineup. How are you feeling about Fried? And then are you going maybe a few Bravos against the nameless Miami hurler?
Yeah, so I've got Daniel Castano, a lefty, going for Miami. I think that's who they're going to go with.
Is he stretched out? What do we got here?
I'm not sure. I didn't really look too much into him because I'm not.
I'm going to go look at him real quick. Yeah, we're not going to take him.
Yeah,
I want to see
lefty you can fire away with Braves bats. Let's put it that way. And good job by you. I guesstimated the run total. So I don't know if I should say good job, but good job by you landing on the same thing I did. I've got the Marlins at a 3.8 implied total. I've got the Braves at 4.2. That should probably be a little higher considering the pitcher going against them. But I wanted to be conservative while I was guessing at it for the show. Do really like Max Fried here. The strikeouts haven't been completely there for him so far this year. 22.4% strikeout rate on the season, but he's pitching well. 8% walks is it's all right. 4.04 xFIP, the 1.48 WHIP. Don't let that fool you. He is suffering from a 348 batting average on balls in play against right now. So that's going to come down. He is not that pitcher. He's much better at keeping guys off base. And what I really like is he's 82nd percentile hard hit rate allowed, 93rd percentile average exit velo allowed, 75th percentile barrel rate. So he misses bats. He's very, very good at it. So I would not really be looking to any of these Marlins. This is a spot where I shouldn't say it that way. This is a spot where if I have a big share of Fried because of that price on DK, especially, I might grab a few Marlins hedge stacks because I do think this is a quality offense. Even though they have not performed, I think getting Starling Marte back in there when they've got Marte, Jazz Chisholm in there, and then into Aguilar, Dickerson, Duvall, and even Isan Diaz, I think there's some quality and some sneaky upside there, slate to slate in catching an individual any given day kind of an outcome. That said, against lefties, they are fourth worst in baseball with a 28% strikeout rate this year. They create runs 12% worse than average. They've only hit 16 home runs and have a 147 team ISO against lefties so far this year. So it's not a great spot. For me, it is much more about Fried, but I would, like I said, probably grab a couple hedge stacks if I am way over the top on Fried, which I think I probably would be given the 7,400. The only intimidating thing there on DK is it looks like a lot of other people are going to be doing that same thing, currently pulling down just under 40% projected ownership for Max over there. But I think it's a mispriced. I think it makes sense to exploit it.
All right. Shout out to producer extraordinaire Chris, who says it's possible that it could be Zach Thompson who is pitching. He actually made his major debut 5 days ago, rolled his ankle, left after 3 innings. This is the Crash Davis of pitching. To this season, when he pitched in for the AAA Marlins squad, that marked his 10th year in the minors before he made the majors, and he didn't get credit for that pandemic season. So whomever Miami is rolling out is going to be targeted by us utilizing the Bravos. We'll know more about that once we get to our Live Before Lock MLB show, which will be at 3:00 today. Let's hit on our last game here of the 4:00 slate / DK slate, and then we'll jump on to that main slate / wrapping up the FanDuel main slate as well, which is running from 4:00 through all the games. We have Baltimore going into Tampa Bay. You've got Jorge Lopez going against the Rays. We definitely want to look to the Rays power hitters. You have Rich Hill on the other side, reinventing himself for the 15th time in his age 41 season, knocking on wood for him officially. Let's hope there are no blisters or fingernail issues, but damn, he is getting it done here. Royals always pesky. However, Royals against a lefty who can strike people out in a downgraded ballpark away from Camden Yards, not as frisky as one would think. Where do you put Dick Mountain in the pantheon of pitchers? Because he's priced up there like Burns and like Musgrove on DK.
Yeah, that DK, it's a stark difference between sites. 9,400 on DK, 7,700 on FanDuel. I think I agree with the FanDuel price a little bit more. I think this is a $7,700 pitcher. Like you said, he's pitching well, and it's nice to see the old guy getting things done. It just speaks to, if you're going to be a baseball player, be left-handed if you're a pitcher, because you can stick around forever. 25.8% strikeout rate on the season, a little bit above average. 3.87 xFIP is fine. 0.98 WHIP is very nice. Inducing 11.4% swinging strikes and hitting a 33% CSW percentage. I like those numbers. So yeah, it's a good spot for a guy who's pitching well. The concerning things are the contact metrics. He's managing to get 61st percentile hard hit rate, but 38th percentile average exit velo and concerningly 23rd percentile barrel rate. So guys are getting the fat part of the bat on the ball. It feels like one of those things that's maybe a matter of time before he runs into the wrong team and just gets lit. That said, I don't know that it's necessarily the Orioles today. They do have some decent power bats, but they're not projecting that well. They're not projecting tremendously for me for power. If you were going to go to some Orioles bats, I would consider the main guys in the middle there, from Trey Mancini down to Freddie Galvis, maybe Michael Franco in the 6-7 spots. So that's Mancini, Santander, Mountcastle, Hayes as the primaries, and then maybe Galvis, Franco. If you want to go to Cedric Mullins off the top, that's fine. So there are playable bats in the Orioles side of things, but I think on FanDuel, I might be inclined to take a couple shots with Rich Hill. He's not going to be owned. He's very cheap. You can get to him. And the Orioles aren't the greatest lineup in the world going up against lefties this season. They are sitting, actually, they're 20.8% strikeout rate, better than I was thinking off the top of my head, and creating runs 21% better than average. So maybe I'm actually a little bit more enthused now that I'm seeing those numbers about getting to some of these Orioles stacks. I'm going to have to look into the projections here and see what's going on there, because they're not projecting that well, but those numbers indicate that they should be. 178 team ISO, 24 home runs on the split. So Orioles actually pretty decent against lefties. Maybe this is a bit more of a threat for Rich Hill than I thought it would have been. So that might take the top of my Rich Hill exposures on either site. And considering that, I think 9,400 probably too much to pay for him on the DK slate.
All right. Anthony in the YouTube chat is happy to hear the resolution of this outcome. He says they're his favorite stack today. They destroy left-handed pitching and they're cheap. So there we go.
There you go.
On to the night slate / DK main slate. If you're playing on FanDuel, reminder, their main slate goes off at 4. It is including all of these games. They only have about 50K across all of their contests for the 7:15 start. They are focusing on basketball there. This game is available only on the DraftKings quote main slate starting at 7:15. It is game 2 of the San Francisco and Washington doubleheader that will be occurring today. It'll be a 7-inning affair. We're not yet sure who will be pitching for San Francisco. It looks like it's going to be Joe Ross Jr. in this one. For the Nationals, it sounds like it's going to be Eric Fetty in the other game for them. Any interest at all here in our 7-inning game? Because on DK, we have to talk a smidge about it, only because it's 25% of our player pool.
Yeah, so this game was not coming up for me in my model just because it's not on the FanDuel slate, so I don't have much on it. We've got, we were saying Joe Ross for the Nats and no pitcher for the Giants.
Correct.
So I know. So for me, that would be a fire away spot for the Giants going up against Joe Ross. I think it's a pretty good spot. The one concerning thing for them is the 26.9% strikeout rate. So if you wanted to grab some shares of Joe Ross as an SP2 on DK, I think it would be in play, considering the fact that they strike out so much. But San Francisco, 3% better than average creating runs against righties, a nice 186 team ISO against righties, 64 home runs in the split. So I think it's a good spot for San Francisco bats. I would probably not over roster Joe Ross, but like I said, there are strikeouts there for him on the right night. It's not one I'm wild about, but considering the fact that we've got such a short slate of options over there, he's got to at least be in play. The Nationals would depend on who's rolling out of the out onto the mound for San Francisco, but there are bats in there that I always like to get to. Considering the Juan Soto's of the world, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner, Ryan Zimmerman even is in play. I would like to get him against a lefty rather than a righty, but I think he can hit against anybody fairly well. So I can get to some of those guys. Just looking for, San Francisco's home run rate, I believe, is the leading home run rate. 4.33% home run rate for San Francisco this year against right-handed pitching, league leading home run rate. So I like the San Francisco stack if I'm choosing one part of this game.
Yeah, the only concern is Mike Yastrzemski's been on the injured list. He may not play both. Brandon Belt also had been on the injured list with the oblique. He may not play both. Brandon Crawford, 34. He may not play both, but they're running out of shortstops. So just keep in mind it may be a slightly different lineup, or we probably won't have it at the time of lock for the DraftKings main slate. Moving on to our next one here, a couple of good pitchers in equally difficult matchups. We're going to call this a pick'em. 4.8 implied run total for both teams. It literally is a pick'em. Luis H. Garcia going against the Twins. Jose Berrios going against Houston. Houston has been on fire recently. They have everybody back. They got Michael Brantley back yesterday, so he is in the mix again. He was batting second. He is 3,300 on DraftKings. I believe he was dealing with a hamstring issue, if I remember correctly there. I don't know what to do in this one. We're really going to be playing both sides. That's a function of 3/3.5 games on this later slate here. Does anything stand out to you other than it could go a myriad of ways?
I mean, those Houston Bats have been, like you said, they've kind of been on fire. They've been a team that I've either talked about or written about pretty much every day this week, and they've basically delivered. So there are great spots in that lineup. It doesn't look like they're pulling a ton of ownership on the FanDuel slate. On the DK slate, you're getting some guys with monstrous ownership. I'm thinking about Jordan Alvarez and Michael Brantley here, who are both above 35% projected ownership. But my guy, Yuli Gurriel, who I can't talk about this team without mentioning, only 10% ownership on the FanDuel slate, under 1% ownership. Dude is just a monster. I think he hit another home run last night after we talked about it. I can't convince people to roster him. I don't know why, but he's at 333, 405, 554, 221 ISO, creating runs 67% better than average, 10 home runs on the season. Just a monster bat in the middle, and nobody goes to him in stacks or as a one-off. I don't know why. Getting to Carlos Correa in there, getting Alex Bregman in there. Lots to like about the Houston stack. Berrios is a good pitcher, but he's not such a standout that he's going to shut these bats down. I don't think. 25.7% strikeout rate, 3.49 xFIP is good, 1.11 whip is reasonably good, 10.9% swinging strikes. He, like I said, he's talented, but he's not projecting through the roof for me. I would prefer the Houston side of this one. Similar story with Luis Garcia, who's also pitching well, 28.8% strikeout rate, 3.94 xFIP, 1.0 whip, 13.2% swinging strikes. Nice swinging strike rate for the kid, 31.4% CSW. So I like what he's doing on the mound, but this Twins lineup is pretty good as well. Decent amount of power, and they're pulling nice power projections from me in the home run model, particularly around the obvious names, Josh Donaldson, Nelson Cruz, Miguel Sano, all up over that magic number of 10. But some of the other guys in the lineup, Alex Kirilloff is pulling a decent number there. Jorge Polanco is okay, despite his struggles so far this season. So I can get to some stacks on either side. It'll be interesting. I think this is one where I'll let process dictate how much I get to the pitchers. I like both pitchers in a vacuum in different matchups. This is a tough matchup on both sides for these guys, though.
All right, 250 watching, just 55 likes. Come on, hit that like button. Get us up to around a respectable 75. Get us cresting towards 100. Also, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you realize that at 1 o'clock, we have the NASCAR strategy show. At 3 o'clock, we have MLB Live Before Lock. That is going to be with Anthony Gundacker's analysis. We've got those main slates starting at 4, so you're definitely going to want to tune into that one as we will have more starting lineups. 5 o'clock, we have UFC Live Before Lock. Jason Floyd and Pete the Heat CGSO Ace Rogers will be giving his MMA advice. And then 2 hours of NBA sponsored by PrizePicks, taking you into the, Utah Jazz in Game 3, first game there in Los Angeles. Clippers favored by 4.5 points. 2 more to go here, Terry. John Gant going against the Cubbies. Tough lineup. Tall order. The Cubbies 4.9 implied run total. Hat tip to my good friend Dean Shevelson, who invented the regression monster. Well, didn't invent him, but did name him. I do have permission to talk about the regression monster per him, since he is my good friend. John Gant, his last start, well, wasn't pretty. 7 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 home runs, 2 strikeouts. Terry, he had been living on borrowed time up to that point, allowing just 1 home run and only 9 earned runs in the prior 50.2 innings. We don't need to go here on FanDuel. However, on the 2 pitcher sites, he is $33 on Yahoo, and he is $7,100 on DraftKings. We have a limited options here for where we can go. The hope is he survives 4, maybe 5 innings, gives up around 3 runs, doesn't strike out a lot of players, but we're hoping no long balls, no empty bases emptying extra base hits. Only a function of the slate, but here we are. John Gant.
John Gant. Yeah, I think that, and you described the exact game that we're going to be hoping for. That's an upside game from him. Not that many strikeouts, but didn't give up home runs. That's basically what you're looking for, is that just kind of, yeah, he was okay. And he didn't cost that much, so he got me where I needed to be, kind of a start. We're talking about a guy 54 2/3 innings, only striking out 16.7% of hitters, walking 15%. 159 whip on the season, 518 xFIP. None of these numbers are good. 9.5% swinging strike rate. What he has done well over the last few seasons is limit the home runs. In terms of the home run per nine, 2018, he was a 0.71, 2019, 0.54, 2020, a 0.0, perfect Dean Wormer. 2021, he's given up that one that you mentioned, so a 0.49. So he's good at keeping the ball in the park, which is really suppressing the Cubbies in my home run model. Most of these guys are trending in the 1 to under 1 range, and we've talked about what those numbers mean. So it's a lineup I like to get to the Cubs. I think there's a ton of power there. I think this could be a spot where you could get a couple home runs out of the Cubbies, despite the ability of the pitcher. We saw that happen to him, like you described, just his last time out, and he's just not a good pitcher. So I would probably still throw some Cubs bats at him, but I think, on the DK slate, you're going to maybe have to play him just based on that price and based on the potential for him to have that okay start where he goes 5-6 innings, doesn't give up too much, doesn't strike anybody out. On the other side, I would not really want any part of Kyle Hendricks for any price on any side, I don't think. 18.5% strikeout rate, 4.16 xFIP, 1.41 whip. He's Kyle Hendricks. He doesn't excite me, and I think the Cards are a pretty decent offense, getting decent power marks coming back the other way. And what I like about the Cards is they're not expensive, particularly on FanDuel. 2,000s, 3,000s, nobody over 3,500 on the entire slate, it looks like, and not pulling any ownership. So I kind of like that spot. That's got some appeal to it.
All right, final game of the night. We have Trevor Bauer taking on the Texas Rangers. Rangers, of course, losing the designated hitter, so they have just a 2.8 implied run total here. This will be a 4. Oh, no, it is actually a 7 o'clock start there. It's 10 o'clock East Coast. It's 7 o'clock in Los Angeles for this start. The key thing you'll want to know, Trevor Bauer has been using the sticky stuff. He railed against it for a couple years, clearly became a convert. And we'll have to see what's going to happen now, Terry. The key things to remember are weak Texas lineup. We don't have that many pitchers, and he is still Trevor Bauer. However, he is allowing, I think, 13 or 14 home runs already. That's more than he did last season in the abbreviated season in less innings here. How are you feeling about Bauer? Is there any nervousness that should be accounted for with regards to the sticky stuff? And then the Dodgers lost both or removed for precautionary reasons. Max Muncy after he hit a home run in the first inning, and then Cody Bellinger after he got a RBI single in the 5th inning and already hit a home run, and the Dodgers were up by 11. They both got pulled last night. I'm guessing Muncy doesn't play today because he has been dealing with some injuries as well. We'll have to see about Bellinger. It did not sound like it was his where he had the fractured lower leg. It sounded more like he just kind of tweaked a knee or an ankle, and it was just we're up by so many, we're getting you out. I expect him to play tonight, but of course, anybody going against Colby Allard is a nice spot. Wrap up our final game for us.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see the lineup that the Dodgers roll out here, but I think regardless of who's in it, I think it's a targetable spot going up against Allard. 27.7% strikeout rate for him, 3.56 xFIP, 1.10 whip, 11.4% swinging strikes. It's not like he's been completely terrible, but he's 26th percentile average exit velo, 39th percentile hard hit rate, and 37th percentile barrel rate. And with an offense as capable as the Dodgers and guys who put the barrel on the ball pretty frequently and have that skill, I think this is a spot where we definitely can fire away with Dodger stacks. As far as the Dodgers pitcher, Trevor Bauer is number 2 out of all 28 pitchers on my board in my projections. I would assume that he's projecting fairly well. I don't have our top pitchers tool up in front of me. If I stall for time, I can get there. Yep, looks like Alex has him number 1 on both the giant FanDuel slate and the small DK slate. So I think we can fire away there. And regarding the sticky stuff narrative, it's like I said, I think it's more about the raised seams on the ball that we're seeing the real, giant uptick for pitchers this season specifically. There is narrative around, Bauer is one of those guys who's been using it, but it's something we can't really quantify. It's something where until we have a sample without him using it, if that is the case, we can't say, all right, I would have him here. I've got him projected for 44 FanDuel points. So do I make that 34? Do I make that 38? Do I make it 25? Like, where do we go with it? There's no way to quantify it. We just have to assume that he's going to be normal Trevor Bauer going up against a Texas Rangers team that is 3rd worst in baseball with a 26.7% strikeout rate against righties, creates runs 12% worse than average against righties, has a 142 ISO as a team against righties. This is just a very, very good spot for Trevor Bauer. And I have to assume that he's going to be Trevor Bauer. And there's no real way to say otherwise. So I think we fire on all cylinders with Bauer. I'll have a ton of them on the FanDuel slate. He's going to be highly owned. And well, actually, all right. So based on the ownership, maybe I won't have a ton of them. 35% owned. I'll have a good amount, but I don't know that I'll crack the field because there are other pitchers I like on that massive FanDuel slate. Like I'll have Musgrove. I'll have a ton of Corbin Burns. I'll have some Dylan Cease in there. So it depends on the distribution about whether I get over the field. But I'd like to at least approach that field number on FanDuel. On DK, I think he's an absolute lock on that small slate. We've got him at 78% projected ownership. If I had him in every lineup, I wouldn't be surprised if I was running on DK.
So here's my thoughts on the sticky stuff. Does it make them awesome pitchers? No. Does it help them? Probably. Not using it or trying to hide it or worrying about it or doing whatever, could that make them uncomfortable? Yes. Is it going to make them a horrible pitcher? Probably not. Is it going to leave a couple balls more than normal hanging where they don't want it? Potentially. That's what we're talking about here. It's not like they're just suddenly not going to be able to pitch Rich and Keel style. They're just going to be, Steven Strasburg mythologically sweating even more than Patrick Ewing used to. So it's one of those where because I see that 3-run shots bringing up a good point. He says, MLB's become a little more narrative driven lately. Do you know why? Because we're running out of things to talk about. So we have to come up with new things because it's the same pitchers every 5 days. And you're either facing a lefty or a righty as a hitter. So we run out of things to talk about. But that's sort of my take on it, Terry. Any final thoughts for today's slate?
For me, as far as that goes, I try and take narrative out of it as much as possible. Baseball is a sport that's about the numbers. You are who your numbers say you are. And Trevor Bauer is one of the best pitchers in the game. I don't care what he's putting on his hands. I don't care until we see it, until it comes through in the numbers. I have to assume Trevor Bauer is who he is. I agree with you that, if he's trying to hide it, if he's trying to, do different things than he normally does, particularly a guy like Bauer, who is a tinkerer and has to be very specific about what he does on the mound and his process and all of that, it could get in his head. But again, I don't know how to quantify that. There is no way to quantify that. So I have to roll with Bauer. I have to assume he's going to be who he is. And I don't want to take the best pitcher on the board off the board just because of a narrative that I have no idea whether it's true or any of that. So, there are a lot of narratives that get talked about. And I think the overall point is, in a lot of cases, you have to take that out of your process and not worry about it. But it does give us something to talk about on shows.
All right. We just need 10% of you watching right now to hit that like button. That'll get us to 100. We have 5 more hours of YouTube content coming for you today. Shout out to Chris for producing. Thank you, Terry. You can follow Terry on Twitter at DigitalB21. I am at EMac Dfs. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, 0.0. Is that even possible? Good luck.
0.0.
Is that it?